So, just so you know, when you go into the breakout rooms, however, that's not live on Facebook. So anything you share, kind of the next 45 minutes to an hour when we're all together, is on Facebook and is recorded. But what goes on in the private breakout rooms is not recorded and it's not on Facebook. And we are live on Facebook. Hello, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas. This is our Relationship Essentials class on July 11th, 2020. And today's focus is going to be all about self-sourcing. Self-sourcing. Um, and we're going to, for Facebook, it'll be live for about 45 minutes, and then we stop on Facebook and we go into breakout rooms with all of the people that are right here live with us. We've got about a half dozen love coaches and about a half dozen guests. And if anybody on Facebook wants to come into our Zoom room and participate in the breakout rooms, send me a private message on Messenger, um, and I will send you the link. All right, so today's topic is self-sourcing, and I'm curious if any of our, and I didn't set this up in advance, if any of our love coaches would like to lead a meditation that would help people really drop into themselves and feel a connection to themselves. Any of our love coaches wanting to lead this morning's meditation? Trish, perfect.
Morning, everyone.
So a reminder to everybody, please keep yourselves muted. Please mute yourselves so we're not hearing you coming in.
Canvas.
Taking a nice deep breath in and closing your eyes. Drop back. Shall we wait for a moment? Thank you. Awesome.
It was Candace that was coming from. So
She's getting birthday messages.
yeah,
I'm actually really excited. I'm like, ooh, yeah.
I know. Sounded like the UFOs were about to land.
Pick me up. I'm ready. All right, everyone watching and here, go ahead and close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in. And on the inhale, just allow yourself to feel your lungs expanding all through your chest and into your rib cage, just feeling that expansion. And on the exhale, sigh out anything that you're holding on to, anything that's not here right now. And as you take a nice deep breath in, imagine your consciousness, your thoughts from your head dropping down through your body into your throat and your heart. Taking a nice deep breath in, dropping down into your solar plexus, allowing yourself to feel into that area as you breathe and expand your lungs. And on the exhale, sighing out anything that's not here, anything that you might need to let go of. Breathing deep now, down into your stomach, down lower into your legs, your knees, your shins, your feet. Feeling your body, feeling the blood pulsing through your body. Feel the heat. Feel any place that you can sense a little bit more relaxation in your shoulders and in your back, in your chin, jaw. Just allowing all that stress to release You take a nice deep breath in and come back to the room. Come back to the space, opening your eyes.
How they do.
It's thank you so much. Let's all twinkle. In Love Coach Academy, we twinkle when people provide a service. So thank you very much, Tricia. That was great. I needed that. So thank you. And I want to invite, I recognize we have a few new friends with us. You're certainly welcome to keep your cameras off, but it's really nice when you turn your cameras on. It's nice to be able to see you. And again, please keep yourselves muted. All right. I can jump in and mute once I see somebody's unmuted, but it's best if you keep yourselves muted so we don't hear background noise. Thank you. Also, we use the chat box a fair amount. So for those of you who may not be familiar, if you are on a computer, at the bottom, if you take your cursor down to the bottom, a little bit to the left of center, is a chat function where you can click in, and that's how we chat with each other. And so, for example, if you want to thank Trish for the beautiful meditation she did, you can click and send her a private message, or you can also send a message to everyone. And I sometimes will ask questions and have people fill in the answers in the chat box. So the chat box is a way we connect with each other. And again, we're going to kind of go over some of these tools, and then we'll go into breakout rooms, probably at around 10:45 or 11 o'clock. I want to do a brief introduction about self-sourcing. And I chose this as a topic today because obviously it's an extraordinarily challenging time for most people with the pandemic, economic uncertainty, civil unrest, and just life in general. So what is self-sourcing? Self-sourcing is the ability to calm our nervous system on our own, not to need another person to do something in order for us to feel okay. And it's not something we're born with. Obviously, an infant doesn't self-source. An infant, and we were all infants, that's how we all started, we were completely dependent on our mother or our parents. And pretty much through most of our childhood, we are dependent on others to be fed, to be clothed, to have shelter. And so we grow up with an indoctrination to look to others to meet our needs. Now, in Love Coach Academy, we honor that everybody, everything that we do as human beings, is driven by what we call universal human needs or values. Our desire for rest, for sleep, for play, for respect, for love. These are all ways that we show up in life. And really everything we do is driven by these needs. And of course, a lot of our needs can only be met through another person. But many of our needs actually can be met within ourselves. We're certainly not promoting being solitary all the time. We're not promoting independence all the time. We recognize that we are interdependent. We don't want to be unhealthy codependent, and we don't want to pretend that we're completely independent. We are interdependent. We definitely interact and connect with each other, and connection with each other is wonderful. Many of our favorite moments in life are when we're connecting with each other. But when we are dependent on another person to get our needs met, it can create a grasping. It can create a grasping experience. When we can be confident within ourselves, comfortable in our own skin, know how to calm ourselves down, we become much more attractive, and we actually become safer. I'm sure you all can relate to it. Think of, I'm sure all of you have had in your life, at sometimes somebody that was constantly grasping for your attention, grasping for connection. And let's not talk about children that were needy. Let's just talk about when you were with another adult that was really needed you to be a certain way in order for that adult to be happy or fulfilled. And it creates a very unhealthy dynamic. So, in order, and it's a paradox, in order to actually be as attractive as possible and to have the healthiest relationships, we ideally have learned how to self source. So we enjoy connection with the other person, but we're not dependent on that other person to say or do anything in order for us to feel happy or fulfilled. So it's kind of like the opening thought, and we're going to talk a lot about how to manage that. But I'd love to open it up to see if any of our senior love coaches want to add anything to, that kind of opening statement. If any of our senior love coaches, Trish, thanks.
I did want to speak to my understanding and sort of like what interdependence and independence looks like.
Trish, your
Um,
volume is really quiet.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you, Trish.
oh,
If
okay. Is this better?
It's better, and definitely we need to get you a pair of these.
I have a pair, but I have that silly new phone that doesn't have the things. So,
Yeah.
okay. So some people have this idea that codependency is wrong and bad, and it's just an experience that we want connection so badly, or we want it so much that we often give ourselves away. We move past our own boundaries to show up for or with another person. And so that's the place that I just want to point to. That some people might not understand that that's the place of like, oh, I'm willing to let go of these things or to be in relation or connection with this person. And interdependence is where you feel strong enough and safe enough to say, I'm honoring my own boundaries here. I'm sourcing myself and meeting you your core, at your core and at your strength.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you very, very much. It's all Twinkle Trish. Thank you, Trish. Yeah, we're not here to make anybody bad or wrong. It's human nature. Look, all of us get graspy sometimes. And especially in our closest relationships, our love relationships, um, it feels so good to merge, right? And we go into that beautiful space of merging and it feels so good. But then we haven't necessarily been trained on how to, after the merging, how to pull back and come back into ourself in a way that doesn't create the illusion of abandonment or the illusion of rejection, but it's like, okay, I love this connection and now I'm moving into myself. And of course, what's ironic, and I'll call on Adrian in a moment, I'm not going to go into attachment theory, but probably many of us are familiar with the science of attachment. And some people are anxious attachment, and some people are avoidant. And something that is important to recognize is that we all have an intimacy threshold. But our intimacy threshold is different from others. So, and there's emotional intimacy, and then there's also sexual intimacy. And they often can intertwine, but for example, we may have friends that we just are emotionally intimate with, or family members we're emotionally intimate with. And then often after that emotional intimacy, um, we reach like a certain depth of connection, and then we get scared. Oh my God, what have I done? I got so close. And we begin to feel a certain dependence, or we got too close, we hit our intimacy threshold. And that certainly happens in sexual intimacy. And because we have different intimacy thresholds, one person is like, yeah, let's keep diving deeper, deeper, deeper. And the other person is like, whoa, I've hit my level. And then we get into trouble because the person who wants to go deeper then starts to perceive they're being rejected or abandoned. And they might start getting even more graspy. And then the other person who's more avoidant, now he's getting scared. Oh my God, what have I done? And how many of you have been on one side or the other of that? Raise your hands. Yeah, I think I see everybody who's got their camera on raising their hand. So the key is self-sourcing. The key is enjoying that depth of intimacy and connection, honoring the other person's intimacy threshold, and being able to come back and come into yourself. Adrian, I saw you raise your hand, so you're up.
Everybody. Yeah, like anything in life, there is a balance. And this is such a powerful topic because, of course, we want to cultivate the ability to rely and depend on ourselves to be balanced. And of course, 99% of us need other people. And we need to have healthy, secure attachment. And I'm glad you brought that up, Scott. You know, ideally, we're raised in an environment where we have solid support through our early years, where we develop that neural pathway that somebody is there for me, a healthy, balanced co-regulator, so that we can bring that understanding into our other relationships. And I just want to put a shout out that it's impossible for most of us to go through life without having strong attachments with other people, healthy attachments that we know are there, so that we actually can self-source. We can take that time to really drop into ourselves. You know, fundamentally, as social animals, we need to feel secure in our relationships with others, at least one or two other people. Yeah. We
Thank
can't
you, Adrian.
do it all on our own. I mean, theoretically, we could, you know, if we're, you know, moving towards enlightenment, but most of us can't. I think it's just important for us to know that having healthy relationships is, of course, so important. I think you're speaking to that, Scott. That's that balance.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's all twinkle, Adrian. So here's a very interesting aspect that I want to share. So Adrian, of course, talked about what happened, you know, how ideally we are nurtured as children and feel safe, but oftentimes we don't. You know, what's natural is for a father to provide safety and a mother to provide nurturing. That's kind of what nature intended. But if we have a mother that doesn't nurture us in the way that we want or need, or a father who doesn't provide safety in the way that we want or need, we have an unnatural childhood, which impacts how we grow up and what we're seeking to heal or work on in our life. Now here's an interesting thing to consider. Not always, but often, how we perceived our relationship to our human father often impacts how our relationship to what you might call God, the universe, higher power, higher self, right? There's an interesting correlation there. If we didn't have a father, human father, we either might end up being very atheistic or going in the opposite direction of really seeking to find God. And often we might seek to find God through a guru or a male teacher, or we're more attracted to God in a more masculine sense. It's an interesting correlation. Likewise, our relationship to our human mother often influences our relationship or our perception of a relationship to planet Earth, to Mother Earth. And for myself, I absolutely believe that our true mother is Mother Earth, and that's where we truly get nurtured. Right now, as we're talking and as I'm speaking and you're listening, we're breathing. We're breathing the air that Mother Earth provides us. Mother Earth didn't provide that air, we would not be able to breathe, we would not be here. And these beautiful body temples that we have are doing all these incredible functions so that we can listen and watch and eat and live life. So again, there's usually a strong correlation to how we perceived we were treated by our human mother and how we experience Mother Earth or what we're seeking with Mother Earth. And this is especially important because obviously everybody watching is an adult. And so now we're all at an age where our human mother and human father cannot possibly nurture us or support us in the ways that they once could, or maybe never did at all. But often I work with adults that are still wanting their human mother to give more than she's just capable of doing. Or with the human father to have more strength or intelligence or something, right, that we naturally want from a human father. And so learning to transcend and appreciate our human parents, at the very least, they gave us life, at the very least. And for most of us, we got pretty cool genes. Beyond that, learning to cultivate connection to higher powers, source, whatever you want to call it, and to Mother Earth, to the planet, learning to look to the earth and to whatever practice for cultivating faith you might have, as opposed to looking to any human being to meet some of those essential needs. Some people have already done this. Some people have a strong meditation practice, a strong gardening practice, a strong connection to the earth, a strong connection to higher self, higher power, God, source, whatever you call it. Those people, I notice, are pretty self-sourced, or they're well on the way to being self-sourced. But for those of us who haven't cultivated a practice like that, then when things get hard, we either feel very alone and very scared, or we can be grasping, looking to other human beings to meet very essential needs. So again, I'd love to open it up to any of our senior love coaches to kind of share what comes up for you in terms of kind of differentiating between our connection to the human mother, human father, and the greater father, if you will, or the greater mother. Anaprabha, by the way, Anaprabha, I was going to call on you. Anyway, because I know you well enough to know that this is a good topic for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, what just comes up as you're talking, it's interesting talking about the father, because I noticed my father was a very hardworking man. And I find myself, he's a workaholic actually, you know, and I find myself kind of falling into that same pattern. And I didn't really, that's kind of an aha moment, Scott, you know, because I hadn't really, I mean, I love to work. I love to create, you know, love my projects, but I can get lost in that. And I realize when I'm doing that now, as you said that, it's like, my father has passed, but I do feel that connection with him in that way, and feeling like that would sort of make him happy, right? More than I would identify with that more than my mother, for example. So that's interesting. Thank you.
Well, you know what's beautiful about what thank you, that's all Twinkle Anaprabha, love you. We tend to either emulate our human parents or go in the opposite direction, you know? How many of you said, oh my God, I just became my mother? Oh my God, that's exactly what my father used to do. Trisha's raising her hand. Yeah, how many of us do that? And in some areas we emulate our parents, and in some areas we say, oh my God, I will never be like my father. I will never be like my mother. So we go in the opposite direction. And it's always interesting to look at that dynamic. Where are we emulating? And are we emulating consciously or unconsciously? I think on a problem, we just had a little bit of a, oh wow, I've been unconsciously emulating. And what I really love that she said, I loved all of it, but what's also pertinent, as a way of honoring her father. Yeah. We often stay psychologically connected to our human parents by doing something that they would be proud of. Or we have interesting ways to be honest. I am aware that some of my shame issues are very connected to a way that I honor my mother and my father. Because both mom and dad, I loved them, I adored them, They gave me life, they gave me so much, and they both had a lot of shame. And they had a lot of stuff around them, which they didn't deal with. They didn't work it. They avoided it. And so I now recognize that as a way of staying connected to them and honoring them, I've kind of taken on, in a sense, that karma, in a sense, that way of thinking, and I'm working it. And I think that's true for many of us. Many of us, it's like, okay, alcoholism in the family ends with me. Domestic abuse in the family ends with me. Low self-esteem in my family lineage ends with me. And I think I've observed with a lot of my peer group and certainly a lot of love coaches that that's become a part of our life, is recognizing that I have this long lineage. And on that topic, I just want to say that lineage isn't bad or wrong. They went through incredible sacrifices to give us the freedom and independence we have today. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they suffered. They had hard lives, really hard lives. And I always like to say, how many of our great-great-grandparents could possibly comprehend Whole Foods Market? No, I mean, it's a way to think about it. I mean, really, they lived on potatoes, right, every year for year after year. And could they imagine walking into Whole Foods Market? And that would be heaven. Like, oh my God, right? And that's just one example of all the incredible freedom and independence we have. Remember, we live better than kings and queens lived 100 years ago. So, and that's because of the sacrifices our ancestors made with the dream of a better life for their offspring. And they were so busy being in survival, crossing the oceans, crossing the plains, working 3 jobs, they didn't have time to deal with their alcoholism. They did not have the time or the resources to deal with the domestic violence pattern or the low self-esteem pattern. We now have the time, we have the resources, we have the tools through Love Coach Academy. So, and other places, of course, and through Light Touch. So let's honor our parents. So back to self-sourcing, what we want to do is learn how to connect to the earth, connect to all that is, whatever you want to call it, cultivating a practice so that we have genuine faith. Genuine faith. And for those of you who have a practice, fantastic. And for those of you who maybe had one but dropped it, reestablish it. I'd love to open it up if anybody, and it could be a guest or a love coach, wants to share a practice they've cultivated that helps them to now self-source through connecting to the earth or connecting to a spiritual experience of some sort. Anybody want to share a practice that they've developed or that they have learned from someone else that has helped them in this way, that helps them self-source? When you get triggered, when you get scared, when life is hard, a practice that you do? Jay, and then Anaprabha.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Jay.
So, I invented this system called Light Touch. I discovered it. I didn't really invent it, but it's something. It is self-nourishing. We looked at it, calling that it's soothing. It's very soothing, and some of our earliest memories are being touched by our parents, and they just so gently ran their fingers, stroked our faces and down our backs. So it brings back a lot of memories about connection and connection to the self, and our parents were actually like gods to us. When we were infants and we couldn't do anything for ourselves, and they gave us everything. So Light Touch is actually a way to tune into the gods. This is a way to communicate to the God within us, and it's so amazing if you need to create money or intimacy, or you need to create a new relationship with yourself and our higher forces, the angels, and or invisible forces, higher power. So I do light touch every day, and I created it because I was in crisis, and I'm not in crisis, and I give credo to light touch for giving me what I needed to get out of crisis and get into spiritual wellness.
Thank you. And I want to say that let's all twinkle, Jay. And thank you for cultivating and sharing light touch with the world as you do. And light touch has become a very important practice and tool within Love Coach Academy. We have light touch parties, or we start some of our webinars with light touch. We certainly suggest light touch, especially to couples that have kind of become disconnected. Often in long-term relationship, couples kind of lose their sexual connection. And light touch is a wonderful way to re-establish connection in a way that's safe and gentle. Or for new people dating, it's a wonderful way to establish connection. So thank you for that, Jay. Anuprabha.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate light touch as well. Really enjoying it. For me, my nervous system is really a focal point. And it's taken me a long time to realize, and self-sourcing has helped that I can calm my own nervous system. I don't need anybody else to help me calm my nervous system. And so tuning into that, but for a long time, what I've been doing is a meditation called the Kundalini meditation. And you can do 5 minutes in each stage or longer, but it's like start with music and shaking the body. And when you shake your whole body, closing your eyes, maybe putting a blindfold on, and just shaking, and you get out of your mind. You just get into your body, which is so important that we get into our bodies, because if we just stay in our mind, our little like hamster mind, it just goes on and on and on, and we can drive ourselves, crazy. And then after like maybe 5 minutes of shaking, going to 5 minutes of just dancing. And a dancing, which is more like a latihan, more like letting your body go into the movement. You're not doing it, but just letting your body move with the music and going into that space for 5 minutes, and then sitting for 5 minutes and laying down for 5 minutes. And that, for me, it's like a 20-minute little thing. And it's very calming, connecting with my physicality. And it's very calming on my nervous system. And actually, the other day, I came out of that meditation, and what came up for me was very, very touching, and that just connecting. I saw my parents as little children. And I know, thanks, Trish. I had this like deep, deep desire to just want to parent them. And I thought, oh, my father would have been so much fun to parent as a little boy. And I would have loved to have parented him, and what a different life it would have been for him, right? And the same for my mom, but especially had this deep connection with my father because he suffered with alcoholism, and then the whole family suffered with alcoholism, right? And I just could see him in this pure little boy that lost his father, child of 16 children, lost his father at 3. Grandma had to take care of 16 children. I mean, he was, but anyway, what came out was just this wanting to, and it felt like a really healing moment as well for me. An acceptance, a love, a understanding, a nurturing. But it was just really beautiful little love bubble. So that came out of that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Anuprabha. Gosh, I'm going to share kind of a really personal memory that just brought up. I was fortunate to be very close to my mother. We were very, very close. And I was a dutiful son. I called her every night, and we talked a little bit, and that was like the highlight of her day, because the last 20 years of her life, she was alone. Her husband died. And the last 6 weeks of her life, I took care of her. We put her in hospice, actually in her own, she lived in an assisted living facility, and I moved in and took care of her for 6 weeks. In the last few weeks, she had gotten to the point where I had to change her diapers. And it was such an incredible full circle of taking care of my mother in that way, changing my mother's diapers. And yeah, it was you know, so she said that on, I mean, I almost have tears as I'm remembering that moment because it was an incredible full cycle. It was really something. I'm going to call on Adrian for a moment too, because Adrian is one of the hardest working men I know. Adrian is one of these guys. He's built his own home in Maui. He goes back and forth between, the Big Island and Portland. He does a lot, and he also does 10-day vipassanas. I mean, I would not be able to sit still for more than a few hours. How he does it for 10 days is beyond me. But I think it's powerful, and I want to have Adrian talk about that because it's obviously a profound practice of helping him to learn how to self-source and regulate and balance his life. So, Adrian, without embarrassing you any further, yeah.
Well, I just want to clarify that my favorite thing to do is nothing. Appreciating more. I think it's important to understand that one of the first things you talked about was self-regulation, right? Like learning how to regulate on your own without depending on an outside person or outside thing. And it's interesting. I think many of us, we regulate in so many ways, like eating food can actually be a really helpful way to regulate, or playing a game, or reading, or taking a bath, or there's so many things that we can do to help regulate in the context of feeling out of balance, of feeling agitated, of your reptilian mind, your lonely mind, your anxious mind. And I feel like having a belief, say, in God is such a powerful thing. If things aren't going well, just that comfort of this faith is so powerful. Having a connection to the Mother Earth, being able to garden, again, it can be a wonderful way to connect and regulate. What Scott's talking about in terms of my practice, it's really kind of a really simple and dry practice, and it's a practice of developing the ability to just observe, of just being with and accepting the present moment. So it's tuning into sensation and learning how to just be with that sensation, whatever it is. Maybe it's anxious sensation, maybe it's sad sensation, maybe it's pain, but it's cultivating that capacity to just be with, which we as human beings have. It's really precious. So yeah, the meditation that he's speaking to is just simply sitting, learning how to feel whatever's happening, and learning how to not want it to be different. Because really all unhappiness is when we want things to be other than they are. That's it. Reality is, and you want it to be different. That act of wanting something to be other, call it fear, call it sadness, call it hunger. And we have the ability to actually be in anything and just accept it. That frontal lobe capacity that gives us that capacity. And so yeah, my practice is simply just practicing that, so that when something happens in life and I'm feeling agitated, how can I just literally self-source? Okay, I'm here, and practice just to be with and accept. And I found that just to be remarkable. And sometimes I want chocolate, and I think that can be a wonderful thing. And sometimes I want to just play catch. I mean, there's so many things, and I think it's really important to understand the balance of, sometimes I need connection, and it's important to understand when connecting with others is really important.
Thank you, Adrian.
Such a balance, It's
Absolutely.
not easy balance to strike sometimes.
That's right. It is all about finding that balance between connection with others and self-sourcing. Thank you. Beautiful. By the way, I noticed that Carmen got a big smile on her face when you talked about chocolate. I saw Anna probably get a smile on that one too. All right, I'm going to take us into just a couple. There's a document, and if any of you want a copy of this document, let me know. And I'll also put it for those of us in Love Coach Academy. I'll put it in the Love Coach Academy thread. But it's a 10-page document. We're only going to briefly look at it. But it's the document that we created, and honestly, I want to acknowledge Emily Orem and I created it together a few years ago, all about self-sourcing. So thank you, Emily. And there are three primary needs as they relate to self-sourcing. The first one is self-love and self-esteem. And in a moment, I'll go back to Trish, because Trish does a show every Thursday on self-love. We'll give her a chance to talk about that. So we're going to turn self-love over to Trish. The second one is kind of what we were talking about briefly, which is safety and security. You know, we need to feel safe. We need to feel safe. And then the third is connecting to our own unique source of energy for inspiration. And so self-love, safety and security, connecting to our own sense of source energy are the three primary needs that we've kind of identified that are connected to self-sourcing. And think about it. When you have good self-esteem, when you love yourself, or someone you know has good self-esteem and loves himself, boy, it's so much easier to function in life. Certainly when we feel safe, it's so much easier to function in life. And when we have our own sense of inspiration, we're not looking to someone else to tell us what to do, but we are finding that within ourselves. I feel called in this moment to whatever it might be. And on that third one, I think that's really up for a lot of people right now in this time of pandemic. Because obviously, it's kind of like the planet is on a big timeout, and it's impacting all of us in powerful ways. And I'm noticing that a lot of people, myself included, feel a real calling. You know, I do this big show every Saturday night. Hopefully you'll all watch this tonight. It's going to be a great show. And the theme of the show is, we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is the time we've been preparing for. And so many of us right now that have that inner calling are like, now is the time I've got to really get my work out to the world. I need to be of service. I need to take care of my family. And it may be a big epic thing that you feel called to do, or it may be, now is the time I got to really heal my relationship with mom, or I got to really work it out with my kids, or I got to really, you know, slow down and cultivate that meditation practice. So whatever it is we feel called to do, it doesn't have to be big or grandiose, but it just needs to be connected to that divine inner spark, not what anybody else is telling us we should do, but that inner knowing. That's self-sourcing, when we're able to trust our inner guidance. I'm sure all of us have had experiences where we trusted our inner guidance and something really cool happened, like we saved our life. And we also know what it's like when we have that inner guidance and we don't follow it, and we have the accident, or we have that bad relationship, or that funky thing happens. So does anybody want to comment just about kind of following inner guidance, the inner source, that part of it? Anything come up for anybody? Anaprabha.
Yeah, I tune into that all the time. That's really powerful for me. Just really going inside and just like listening to that little voice, really, that's there, and trusting that voice, you know, and going in the direction of that. And I have just always, you know, honored that. And whenever I do, in fact, just saying this, for example, coming out of this alcoholic family, it was often, I was really afraid to speak. It really wasn't safe to speak. And I find myself sometimes being afraid to start speaking. But often once I start speaking, I know it just starts coming out. And it's like, oh, okay, am I making sense? And then I understand, I get feedback, yes, you're making sense. Do you understand that I don't sometimes even understand that I'm making sense, but I am. So I have to trust that, you know, little voice of mine, and to step out of my comfort zone, right? and step into like, yes, I can make sense. I do have something to offer. And follow through with that. And that's what I've learned a lot with Love Coach Academy, because we really create this safe, sacred container to be, you know, um, really to be vulnerable and to put out our fears and our shame. And then we really get held in this really loving space where you strengthen that muscle
Mhm.
of saying how you're feeling, or that you're feeling shame about something, or you're feeling fear about something. And that's the deepest, healing really there is to have that safe place and for others to really see you and love you and support you, right? So,
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to get to one more piece because I want us to go to breakout rooms within 10 minutes. But Trish, do you want to talk a little bit about self-love and the self-love show, since that's a big part of self-sourcing?
I love self-love. Can you hear me better now, by the way?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Um, so self-love is the foundation of any relationship that you want to have outside. So the relationship that you have with yourself is the relationship that you'll have with everybody else. And if we haven't built a strong foundation internally, then it's likely that there's going to be a lot of struggle and crunchiness. So finding ways to feel safe and secure and love yourself is really a place where we can step forward in our lives. One of my dearest friends and coach, Dawn Light, and I host a class every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. called the Self-Love Show. And we talk you through, like, give you tools every week to really find the balance and the strength in yourself to move forward and to trust your intuition. We also just dropped Freedom of the Heart, which is a group coaching that is also goes deeper into the places that we can't touch on the show. And if I can just say one thing about when we start to put our focus on another person and start to really seek out what we need from them, that's a really good time to stop and slow down. Give yourself self-empathy, but also to bring your thoughts and rest them on yourself. Not in an egotistical way, but slow down. You're pushing your energy outward. Bring it back into rest on yourself and your needs. Self-love just looks like that. Just a little tweak.
Beautiful. Thank you, Trish. Let's all give Trish a twinkle. Twinkle, twinkle, little Trish. Thank you. All right. I'm going to go to the four primary pieces we call the anchors of connection. And some of this we've already talked about, but connecting and grounding to the earth, really important. And there's a couple of ways that I love to do that. One is just feeling the soles of your feet on the ground. Sometimes we get knocked out of our body. And so if you want to come back into your body, bring all your attention to the soles of your feet. Or for those of you who believe in the chakras or the energy centers, really connecting to your root chakra and imagining it connecting all the way to Mother Earth. Breathing in and bringing our energy down, grounding to the earth. Another wonderful way is just remembering that even when we are physically alone, we are always being held. We're always being held by our true mother. It's called gravity. How beautiful is gravity? And I've given this to a lot of people that experience loneliness, really tuning into the beauty of gravity. Our true mother is always holding us. Tune into gravity. Really, really feel that. Oh my God, this planet is holding me. It's a beautiful, beautiful kind of meditation or a beautiful awareness to have. Okay, going back to our little document here. Second one, it's kind of like, obviously we've talked about grounding to the earth, and the other side, we talked about it before, connecting to source energy, whatever you call it, God, higher self, spirit, really cultivating and feeling that connection to higher power. Now here's a third one that we haven't talked very much about today, and it is important, which is connecting to our heart, which is the meeting point between Mother Earth and Father Sky. Those of you who have been around have heard how often I do the prayer where I imagine Mother Earth and Father Sky making love inside of our heart. And just imagine that every heartbeat is a stroke of divine sacred union between Mother Earth and Father Sky. I love imagining that. And also inside of our heart, we can always find our inner child. That part of us that just wants to love, just wants to play, you know. As Adrian said, just wants to play catch, right? So connecting to our heart, connecting to our inner child, our inner self, is really, really important. So again, those are kind of like the three connection points to Mother Earth, to Father Sky, and then to our own heart, our own inner child. And then the fourth element of all of this is learning how to set boundaries. Like we're talking a lot about how to connect, but we can only connect effectively to the degree we also know how to set appropriate boundaries. Again, we love to merge, but then we also need to come back. You know, there's an interesting aspect. All forms of life, every life form that scientists have studied, contracts and expands. The nature of life is to expand and to contract. We breathe in and out. All life contracts and expands, contracts and expands. And it's the same thing. We love to merge, and then we need to be able to pull back. Connect to the earth, come back to self. Connect to another person, come back to self. Connect to higher power, come back to self. So learning that back and forth. Some of us have to work on creating the connection. Some of us have to work on how to set the boundary or how to pull away from that connection without there being a perception of absence or lack or abandonment or even rejection. Does it make sense to everybody? So this is what we're going to work on in our breakout rooms. We're going to go into breakout rooms of about probably three or four people each. There'll be one or two love coaches in each breakout room. I would like to encourage you to do some light touch. Obviously, Jay will only be in one particular breakout room, but I'll make sure that we have somebody in each breakout room who knows light touch. Candace, Anna Prabha, Trish, you guys are all good with light touch. So we're going to go into breakout rooms and we're going to work on these things. And this is where you can each talk very honestly and candidly about the different aspects of how are you doing with connecting to Mother Earth, Father Sky? How are you doing with setting boundaries? But I still need to create the breakout rooms. So I would love to invite one of our love coaches maybe to share a little bit about setting boundaries, about how you set boundaries. Any of our love coaches want to tackle that one? Which will give me a moment to... Trish, thanks.
So boundaries are the place where you can love yourself and love another person at the same time. It's the place where you can hold that honoring of your needs and wants while honoring the other person and merging with them as well. So it's really important to tap in with yourself and really call in what's real and what's necessary for you. A boundary that I have is being yelled at in an argument. So that's like, I know that what happens in my body is, okay, if someone's coming at me, I'm like, oh, I need to stop, slow down, honor the place in me so that I can show up in that. So boundaries with compassion is a really great key place to, share reassurance, share the boundary, and then share reassurance again. Boundaries with compassion. I know Anna Prava wanted to say something as well.
Okay, let me hang on. I'm just in the middle of making these breakout rooms, but I am going to switch to Anna Prava. Thank you, Trish. And I need about two more minutes on a problem. Maybe 3.
Yeah, thanks, Trish. That's just a perfect segue. I mean, I've just wanted to say something because it's been such a powerful practice, this boundaries with compassion for me, and feeling that I have the right to have a boundary with compassion, you know, and how to set that boundary with it in a compassionate way. And we at Love Coach Academy, having the yellow light and the red light has been so important, you know, like in relationship, or that, you know, when you're feeling, because for me, when I get yelled at, it just like, I just get really contracted. My nervous system gets freaked out. It just, I can't, I freeze, you know? And so it's really, there's no way to really communicate for me. So using the red light, saying, you know, or the yellow light, or the yellow light or the red light, with yellow light meaning that we still care enough about each other that we can maybe sit together and say, hey, let's just slow it down. Slowing down is really powerful. Slow it down. I really care about you and I really want to hear what you have to say. And I'm available to hear it. And that's when you still have the yellow light. And the red light being that you really don't care about the other person, how they feel. And you separate maybe but with reassurance that you will get back together at a future date. But you can set that timing for 1 month, for 1 day, 2 days, 3 months, whenever you feel it's like safe for you to, you know, it's all about being safe, like what feels safe. And I think when you come out of toxic families, you really have to learn and allow yourself this feeling of, where do I feel safe? Because you never felt safe. It's just a huge thing to honor to honor my nervous system. Okay, am I feeling safe right now? And how does that work? Not that I'm avoiding, you know, but just really tuning into what is real for me and coming out of that and being empowered, and that ability to be compassionate, but also be compassionate with myself and not always thinking about the other, but to really tuning into, yes, I can be compassionate with myself and set a boundary here. And then
Beautiful.
having a reassurance for the other person that at the set time and place, we'll get back together and yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both, Trish and Anaprava. Okay, it's breakout room time. And I've created breakout rooms. There's going to be 3 or 4 people in each room. It's always a little tricky because the people who haven't turned their cameras on, I'm not sure if you're really with us or not. But there'll be 3 or 4 in each breakout room and 1 or 2 love coaches in each breakout room. And we're going to go for till 11:45, so a little over 40 minutes. That's enough time. And I'm going to pop in and visit some of your breakout rooms. So,
And so,
let's
Scott,
say,
again, sometimes it's helpful if you get really clear, because I've experienced going into breakout rooms and people not really being sure what we're doing. So you're wanting us to explore boundaries, our relationship with boundaries, and our relationship specifically with self-sourcing through our relationship with earth and sky. Or just, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, basically where people are at with that, celebrating, you know, it's always wonderful to celebrate people that have practices that are working and learn from each other, and also to support people that maybe struggle with connection to Mother Earth or connection to Source, or struggle with finding that balance of setting boundaries, right? I have put into the Love Coach Academy Master Relationship thread on Facebook the document. If you want to go in and take a look at the document, any of you can do that. And also, especially because this is going to be small groups. There's only 3 or 4 people in each group today. So whatever has come up for you in relationship to this topic, I certainly trust our love coaches to manage that. And I also would certainly encourage a little bit of light touch. Introducing some of our people to light touch would be great. And if any of you get stuck or have a question, just send me a note and I'll jump into your class and help out. All right? So this is that exciting moment where you get to see who you're going to be in a breakout room with. Again, the breakout rooms are confidential. They're private. They're not recorded. Nobody's watching on Facebook. And speaking of Facebook friends, I'm going to stick with you for a couple minutes and then we're going to end the Facebook stream in a moment. So I have just clicked open all rooms. all of you are going to see on your computer join room. So please click join room and you get to see who you're going to be spending the next 40 minutes with. So click join room so that you can go into the rooms you're going to be going into. And again, Adrian, still need you to click join room, partner. And to those of you who haven't clicked join room, if you're having a challenge, looks like whoever KG is, I think maybe you just came into the class. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, I'm
Hi.
Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. So we've been talking about self-sourcing today, how to connect to Father, whatever you want to call it, higher power, higher self, to Mother Earth, how to really fill yourself up in order to be much more full and less looking to others for connection or for grasping. So can I pop you into a breakout room where you'll work privately with 2 or 3 other people, including a love coach?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's going to happen is I am going to put you into breakout room number 2, and you should see where it clicks and says join room. Do you see that? Do you see on your computer where it says join room? I guess so. Gosh, JP, I would love to have you go into I have you working with Trish, who's somebody I want you to meet to be a empathy partner. So I sure would love for you to go into her room. If you can hear me or see this, all you have to do is click join room. Wow. Huh.
Hi there, this is Candace at the Temple of Prophet. I am back in.
Hey, Candace, please come back into the Zoom room, into the main room. I will unmute you and then I'll pop you into a breakout room because we want you to be a part of this. And I want you to be in with, I'm going to put you in with Anaprabha and Jay. So please come back. I tried calling you. Um, I know sometimes that you like to duck out of our uh, course, so please come on in, okay? Come join us, come back. Hey, hey, hello JP. Hello Nico.
Hey, Scott. Hey,
How you
Scott.
doing?
I
Good
don't
to
know why this news thing's coming. No, I got it. I was actually using it for a school project, so after I took it off.
there's the background
Okay,
that you
there you
have.
go.
So, can you, let's move, I want to move JP into a room.
Okay.
So, do you see what says click join room? Do you see that? So you're recording. Love to welcome back everybody, and I'd love to just hear highlights. Not you don't have to share anybody else's personal experience, but what are some highlights or some things that came up for people? And I'll start by hearing from our primary coaches. Adrian, any highlights you want to share from your group?
Oh my goodness, I feel so blessed to have been with my new friends. An incredibly powerful sharing of um, connection to source, a kind of one of the people in my room had an experience of not having a lot of connection with primary caregiver, not having a lot of feeling of I got you, safe, unconditional love, and having just this kind of spontaneous on some level connection to source, just profound, the kind of experience you might have if you were going to take psychedelics, for example. And in the midst of still a really challenging experience in life and not getting a lot of needs met, this connection to source, this connection to this fundamental like experience of oneness, of like seeing through the veil has given still to this day this comfort, this security, this knowing, this connection to love. It was just a powerful story. It brought me to tears. Yeah, I feel so inspired and blessed. It really illustrated what you're speaking to, Scott. One of this and it was a real powerful example for me to see that so clearly. Yeah, wow. And yeah, then just the beautiful conversation on the nuances of when to, I was such, so there's, how do you distill? The balance is between, you know, one of the things that came up for me really strongly, I guess I'll speak to this, is, you know, many of us do really well at self-sourcing, actually, and we're almost too strong on that side. I just want to give a shout out to this. Like and I've said this before, we live in a really self-reliant culture, like do it yourself, pull up your bootstraps. And I really fall into that quality of sourcing myself actually on this side. And I could use more work on asking for help, actually reaching out to others. And that life is a balance. And my partner, and I've said this before in some of these talks, has asked me to really flex that muscle of coming to her for help. You know, going on the other side of not just doing it on my own. So I guess I'll do a shout out for that. And yeah, talking about that balance of relationship. So many of us are with just one or two people, you know, just one, like a partner, and we get all of our needs met through that one person. And it's unhealthy, it's unnatural. We used to get our needs met by so many people, the tribe, the grandparents, the community. Children would be raised by a tribe, and now we live in this really unbalanced world, and we need to work on getting our needs met elsewhere through ourselves, playing catch, or other people. What a balance, just what a balance and delicate balance life is. So.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Adrian.
Feel honored. Thank you, friends. I hope to see you again.
Yeah. I put at least one person from Hawaii. We're building this Hawaii contingent. So welcome, Cosmic Alignment Bliss. It's great to see you show up, and I hope you'll continue to come back and join us as we build our Hawaii contingent. Trish, what do you want to share about from your group, your pod?
I'm going to share for our pod.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So, you know, we talked a lot about boundaries, and one of the things that we really explored and we all resonated with was the importance of really honoring our own needs in the face of someone else's needs, or even an external authority who might think that they know better about my needs than I do. And so to like really recognize when somebody is, like, specifically something with my body, you know, when somebody is making a decision about, it could be anything from a medical doctor to a sexual situation. When somebody has these ideas about that include me and my body, how do I let them know that I understand what their needs are, or that they are trying to care for me. And at the same time, just really tuning into, this doesn't feel good for me. And to be able to speak it in a way that is compassionate, but is very clear. You know what? This is a no for me. And, you know, it can be scary. It requires courage. It requires self-connection. And yeah, to do that is a very, very important part of boundaries. And I think that kind of summarizes the gist of our conversation that went a lot of places, actually.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for the summary, and thank you for the reminder. Beautiful from both you and Adrian. And Anaprabha, tell us about your pod. Anything you want to share?
Yeah, wow. That's what I have to share. Also, thank you, Adrian and Danielle, with what you guys said was both so beautiful and important. You know, we started out with first just two in our pod, and it is kind of like these little spaceships, but we, and then we just had this journey together. We're really similar in our life experience, and how we really, coming out of toxic families, really went on our search, right, for self-discovery. And that was really how, we didn't realize that at the time maybe, but we were really, how we loved ourselves was really like going into the unknown, and really sort of like the willingness to knowing that what was in our family was not healthy. And we're willing to go to all ends, whatever it took, to find out who we were and to find another tribe where we felt safe and loved and connected and could be, you know, could be real with, and it was a tribe of people that we wanted to go deeply into self-discovery, right? How important for us, really, like who am I here, right? It's deep self-discovery. And we shared that very profoundly, you know, and how important that was to us, and how willing we were to drop everything. Everything was dropped. We had like maybe a little backpack, and we're on the road in faraway countries with no Google, no map, no nothing, just like looking for our tribe, right? and then we had another little spaceship all of a sudden come into our group. It was like, whoa, okay. And that turned into this beautiful, we did some somatic work where it really sort of, we went into, I don't know, a rebirth again. We really sort of did a rebirthing and a celebration, and where there was the gatekeeper in our group, and then there was, and then there was a person that really just went out there and really could see the beauty of this amazing person here, and shared with appreciation around what was happening. And we had a deep connection, all of us, and a deep appreciation for each other, and just felt like this new birth was happening, you know, and a rebirth. So that was us.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. And I'd just like to encourage everybody this week to really be in tune with self-sourcing. Notice, when are you looking unnecessarily to the outside world to get your needs met? And when can you do that, take that energy and go within? And for Adrian, may you ask for more support this week. Okay. A reminder, tonight we're going to have an amazing show. Every Saturday night is Saturday Night Live for the Global Peace Tribe. It's this big inspirational variety show that I co-produce with Deborah Giusti. We're starting at a different time tonight. We're going to start at 6 o'clock Pacific time. So it's going to go from 6 till 9 approximately Pacific time. And the theme is very much around what's happening with the harmonic convergence. We've got Mark Sims leading the meditation and taking us into how to prepare for connection with other energies, including extraterrestrial. We've got some really cool speakers, and we have amazing musicians. We've got Olax, this Siberian, they're from Siberia, and they do throat singing and drumming, and they're finalists on America's Got Talent. And they're going to be on our show tonight, doing 3 songs. In fact, I'm doing my sound check with them in 1 hour. So I'm really excited about them. And then we've got Andrea Brooks, the Sonic Butterfly, who's going to be doing sound harp work. You'll love that, Anna Prabha. You got to check that out. So anyway, that's at 6 o'clock tonight Pacific time. It's going to be a great show, so please do join us. Most of you probably have already registered, but if you need information, just Facebook message me, and I'll send you the way to register. It's all free. It's a free, amazing event. And finally, just a reminder, the Love Coach Academy does all these wonderful shows. You've heard about some of them. Anu Prabha and Adrian do a show on Tuesday mornings about managing triggers. Daniel does a show on Monday nights with his Ohana group. Candace does a show that she created on Friday mornings, Fun and Frolicking Fridays. Jay Mayer is in many of our shows, bringing light touch. So definitely check out the beautiful shows that we're doing. You can find all about that at lovecoachacademy.com. lovecoachacademy.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Let's have a beautiful week of self-sourcing, and I look forward to my next connection with each of you. Take care, everybody.